Imagine receiving an email from someone who might already be dead. Not a prank, not a scam, but a warning. A warning about something buried deep inside the most dangerous jungle on Earth. Something ancient, something powerful, and something that was never meant to be discovered. Tonight's story begins with a journalist, a missing scientist, and a secret hidden beneath the Amazon rainforest. And by the time this story ends, you might start wondering if the jungle is hiding more than just trees. Jake Carter had built his entire career on one simple rule: never believe the legend. He was an investigative journalist based in Chicago. For more than 10 years, Jake had traveled across the world exposing fake mysteries and exaggerated myths. A cursed gold mine in Nevada, a haunted prison in Louisiana, even a supposed lost pirate treasure somewhere in the Caribbean. Every time, Jake had proven the same thing. The world loved mysteries, but the truth was usually much simpler. That's why Jake never expected his life to change because of a single email. It was a quiet night in Chicago. Rain tapped softly against the window of Jake's apartment, while the city lights reflected on the wet streets below. Jake sat at his desk, editing an article for an online magazine. The story was about a group of treasure hunters who claimed they had found a hidden Civil War vault. Jake had already proven the claim was false, another myth destroyed. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. That's when his laptop made a small notification sound. A new email. Normally, Jake ignored late-night messages, but this one caught his attention immediately. The sender's name appeared on the screen: Dr. Elena Ruiz. Jake frowned. He knew that name. Elena Ruiz was a famous archaeologist who studied ancient civilizations in South America. She had appeared in documentaries, written several best-selling books, and more importantly, she had a reputation for being extremely careful with her claims. She wasn't the kind of scientist who chased wild theories. Jake opened the email and immediately felt something strange. The subject line read, "If you're reading this, I might already be dead." Jake blinked slowly. That was not something a respected scientist would normally write. He clicked the message. Inside was only a short paragraph, but every word made the room feel colder. The message said, "Jake, I discovered something deep inside the Amazon rainforest, an ancient structure buried beneath the jungle. But this isn't just another ruin. Something is protecting it. If anything happens to me, follow the coordinates below and find the truth. But be careful, they're already watching." Below the message was a set of GPS coordinates. Jake stared at the screen. At first, he assumed it was some kind of joke, maybe a hacker using Elena Ruiz's email account. But something about the message didn't feel like a prank. He opened a map and entered the coordinates. The location appeared instantly. Deep inside the Amazon rainforest, miles away from any city, miles away from roads, miles away from civilization. Jake leaned back in his chair. The Amazon was one of the most unexplored places on Earth. Entire sections of the jungle had never been properly mapped. Thousands of species still haven't been discovered, and occasionally, people vanished there. Jake looked back at the message. One sentence kept repeating in his mind. Something is protecting it. Jake whispered to himself. Protecting what? The next morning, Jake began researching Dr. Elena Ruiz. What he found made the situation even stranger. 3 weeks earlier, Dr. Ruiz had gone missing. Her research team had been conducting an archaeological expedition deep inside the Amazon. But then, suddenly, all communication stopped. No messages, no satellite signals, nothing. At first, the situation didn't attract much attention.
Expeditions in the jungle sometimes lost contact for days, but after 2 weeks passed, people started to worry. Search teams were sent. Helicopters scanned the jungle, but they found nothing. No campsite, no equipment, no sign of Elena Ruiz or her team. It was as if they had simply vanished. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He looked back at the GPS coordinates from the email. They matched the same region where Elena's expedition had disappeared. Jake closed his laptop slowly. Something about this situation felt wrong. Scientists didn't send mysterious warnings, and they certainly didn't send them to journalists who specialized in debunking myths. Jake looked again at the final line of the email. They're already watching. Who were they, and what exactly had Elena discovered? Jake stood up and walked to the window. Chicago traffic moved below him. The city looked normal, safe, predictable. But somewhere, thousands of miles away, inside the Amazon rainforest, there might be a secret waiting, and maybe a story bigger than anything Jake had ever investigated. Jake picked up his phone. He opened a flight booking website. Destination: Manaus, Brazil, the gateway to the Amazon.
2 days later, Jake stepped off a small plane onto the hot runway of Manaus International Airport. The heat hit him instantly. Unlike Chicago's cold wind, the Amazon air felt thick and heavy, almost like breathing through warm water. Manaus was a strange city. Modern buildings stood beside old colonial houses, but beyond the city, the jungle began, an endless sea of green stretching across millions of acres. Locals had many names for the Amazon: the lungs of the planet, the wild frontier, but some guides called it something else: the green hell. Jake checked into a small riverside hotel where many explorers stayed before entering the jungle. The hotel owner noticed Jake studying a map of the rainforest. "You going into the forest?" the man asked. Jake nodded. "Research trip." The owner looked concerned. "Many people come here for research," he said. "Some of them never come back." Jake smiled politely. He had heard that warning before. Every dangerous place in the world had similar stories. But Jake didn't believe in jungle curses or supernatural legends. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about Elena's message. That night, Jake contacted several local guides. Most refused immediately when they saw the coordinates. One man even laughed nervously. "You don't want to go there," the guide said. "Why?" Jake asked. The guide shrugged. "Because nobody goes there." Finally, Jake found someone willing to meet him, a man named Miguel Silva. They agreed to meet at a small dock near the Amazon River early the next morning. Jake had no idea that this meeting would be the first step into something far more dangerous than he imagined. The next morning, a small wooden boat waited at the dock. Standing beside it was a quiet man in his 40s, Miguel Silva, the guide who had agreed to take Jake into the jungle. But when Miguel looked at the coordinates Jake handed him, his expression slowly changed. The color drained from his face, and for a long moment he said nothing. Finally, he looked up at Jake and asked one question. "Where did you get these coordinates?" Jake hesitated, then answered honestly. "From a missing scientist." Miguel stared at him, then looked toward the endless jungle beyond the river, and quietly said something Jake would never forget. "If those coordinates are real, then someone inside that jungle does not want to be found."